What else is there to decide? If we are talking about Eastern Europe, which we will have to deal with, of course, it will be more or longer.
So, Ukraine is just an intermediate stage?
Yes, of course, absolutely right. This is just the beginning.
Units of the 92nd Assault Brigade and the 58th Motorized Brigade fought off a large mechanized assault by the Russians in the Belgorod region. The brigade's press services published videos of the repelled assault. The repulsion of the Russian assault took place in the border area between the settlements of Ustinka, Zhuravlyovka, and Solntsevka in the Belgorod region, where the Russians attempted to advance and break through the border. During the assault, the enemy deployed a significant amount of combat equipment, including infantry fighting vehicles and tanks. In addition to armored vehicles, motorcycles, buggies, and civilian cars were also used. The first target for the defenders was the Russian military on unarmored vehicles, who were moving ahead of the main forces. After several strikes, the enemy infantry on light vehicles began seeking cover near a forest belt, but was successfully eliminated. After the arrival of the main forces, units of the 92nd Separate Assault Brigade engaged the infantry fighting vehicles. Overall, according to the published video, the brigade's units accounted for about 10 destroyed enemy infantry fighting vehicles. The primary area for the Russian equipment destruction by the 92nd Brigade was the region between the settlements of Ustinka and Zhuravlyovka in the Belgorod region, where the Russians were focusing the vector of their offensive. Meanwhile, units of the 58th Motorized Brigade, after an artillery and missile strike by the Russians, began repelling the Russian assault in the direction of the settlement of Solntsevka in the Belgorod region. The destruction of equipment also occurred in the Ustinka area. As the 58th Brigade reported, 14 enemy units of equipment were destroyed, including a tank, 8 infantry fighting vehicles, 2 motorcycles, 2 buggies, and a car. Additionally, 1 infantry fighting vehicle was damaged, as well as 4 ATVs, motorcycles, and buggies. It should be noted that the Russians are making several attempts to break through the defense positions on the border with Russia, specifically from the Belgorod region, in order to create a new axis of advance towards the Kharkiv region. Despite this, the Ukrainian defense forces are actively monitoring enemy actions and conducting both missile and bomb strikes on enemy troops, as well as carrying out operations directly on enemy territory. As a part of an interview from 2023, Colonel General Mordvichev said Russia will invade more Eastern European countries, and Ukraine is just the beginning. Putin appointed him commander-in-chief of the Russian ground forces, known among the rank and file as General 200 for his ruthless disregard for soldiers' lives. See what Russians think about Western soldiers.
Is the war going to last long?
Well, I think that
We still have to spend quite a bit of time on
Talking about specific deadlines? No, it's pointless.
it's pointless, yes. What else is there to decide? If we are talking about Eastern Europe, which we will have to deal with, of course, it will be more or longer.
So, Ukraine is just an intermediate stage?
Yes, of course, absolutely right. This is just the beginning.
But are we ready if we suddenly have to tussle with NATO? Will they be stronger than the Ukrainians or weaker?
I think weaker, much weaker.
So the route is different?
Completely different overall. Slavic approach, Soviet school.
The Black Swift unit of Ukraine's 103rd Territorial Defense Brigade took out a group of Russian forces in the Kursk direction. 7 Russian pioneers went into a basement. None came back out. Although Russia has claimed control over Kursk, Ukrainian forces remain active in the region. Reconnaissance units and drone operators continue to strike Russian positions, proving that the area is far from secure. These ongoing operations show that Ukrainian resistance is still strong and capable of challenging Russian advances, even in territories Moscow considers captured. A Russian soldier on the Donetsk front tried to shoot down a Ukrainian drone from the 28th Brigade with his rifle and ended up peppering his own ass with shrapnel instead. Russian soldiers have been spotted using shotguns to shoot down Ukrainian drones. Lacking proper anti-drone systems, they're resorting to improvised tactics, highlighting just how unprepared some units are for modern drone warfare. Russia. Iskander ballistic missile system designer experienced the most classic Russian death. On May 9th, Victory Day, the drunk and depressed Vladimir Nedoshevin, 73, was urinating on the public stairwell of his apartment building, for which his neighbor threw him down the stairs. Putin is playing with Trump like a little child and making a fool the entire U.S. administration in the process. Witkoff went alone to a Kremlin meeting with Putin in April. Russian intelligence officer pretended to have been sent from the U.S. embassy and proceeded to serve as Witkoff's translator during the meeting.
Can you believe that the American government used a Russian asset, a Russian agent, as an interpreter for a high-stakes negotiation about ending the Ukraine war? It sounds crazy, but it happened. At the end of April, Steve Witkoff traveled to Moscow to meet with Putin for the 4th time this year. Now, he chose to go alone. He entered the room at the Kremlin where Putin and 2 of his advisors were present. And there was only one other person sitting on the other side of the table. It was a woman. Witkoff turned to her, pointed at her, and said, "Interpreter?" Interpreter? She said, "Mm-hmm." He followed with a question, "From the embassy?"
From the embassy. Okay.
Now, let's stop here for a second. The only thing that makes sense here is that he probably thought this was a woman sent by the American embassy as an interpreter. There's one problem with that. The woman that he assumed was his interpreter is not just a Russian government interpreter. We can see her next to important Russian figures such as Lavrov, Medvedev, Putin himself over different years, but she also served as Russia's representative and second secretary to the mission to NATO in Brussels. She also served as an advisor to the Russian delegation to the OPCW, the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in The Hague. Now, neither of these are pure interpreter jobs. They're much more compatible with being a Russian spy. Not surprisingly, we see her here, right behind the head of Russia's spy agency, Naryshkin. Now, Yulia, that's her real name, interpreted for Witkoff over the course of that meeting. The problem with that is this was not just dinner chit-chat. This was a serious negotiation where the stake was the lives of hundreds and maybe millions of people. An interpreter can influence the negotiation. I worked as an interpreter. I know that every word that you say, the way you say it, the sentiment, and the way you look even at the client can convey a message. Now, having a spy for the other side serving as your interpreter is inherently dangerous. And the fact that you accept that signals to the other side that you're at the very least incompetent and at the very worst, a very easy target for deception. And this, unfortunately, happened at the end of April in Moscow. Now, as my friend and colleague from the Spiegel, Fidelis Schmidt, joked, if she really was from the American embassy,
Okay.
The Americans have assets all over the place and they're going places. Unfortunately, that was only a joke. She was an asset, but not an American one. Like and subscribe for more of these videos.
George Simeon, a pro-Russian candidate for Romania's presidency, has accused France of allegedly meddling in the elections. He claims Emmanuel Macron is using diplomatic channels and financial leverage to sway the will of the Romanian people.
Have you received any indirect or direct threats since we last spoke from any foreign entity?
It's basically France. This is why, hopefully at least 2 or 3 hours, I want to go to Paris to address the free French people against this authoritarian Emmanuel Macron, who doesn't have the support of French people, who banned Marine Le Pen, who is support the idea of imposing dictatorship and canceling the will of the people. They are putting a lot of money and pressure through their ambassador here and through foreign institutions in order to rob the Romanian people of their vote.
Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. China is the country that could end the war in Ukraine. The country that could end the war and put Putin in his place is China. Russia is now an economic vassal of China. If China threatened to impose a trade embargo, Russia would be forced to obey. However, it doesn't look like it will do so, Sikorski said in an interview with Tagesspiegel.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.